Jonathan Perry. With Mark Bunker's video of November 29th, 2021, showing him talking turkey about Scientology, things are starting to get real and going on record. What do you think would happen to David Miscavige's reputation within Scientology if they lost their tax exemption? That brings up many questions, but maybe you could paint a picture from everything to how they would spin it to how it would affect Sea Org members, public staff, OTs, Tom Cruise, etc. Would Tom Cruise come out and speak publicly against this attack on the church or get involved at all? Would Miscavige simply blame it on all the members, or would the members start to blame it on him? Would it affect how everyone got paid and the cost of services? I understand that your response would be complete conjecture, but I'm still curious about what you think might happen. Okay, Jonathan, thank you for this. And this is far from the first time I have asked or answered this question about what would happen if Scientology loses their tax exemption. In fact, I dedicated a chapter of my book to how they got their tax exemption back and why this was so important to them. So if you haven't checked that out, please do so. What I want to say here and bringing this up again is that, yes, the heat is on in Clearwater right now on Scientology, and this is a really good thing. Aaron Smith-Levin's city council run that he's making this year is definitely producing some ripples in the Scientology world there, and Miscavige is desperately trying to make a deal with the city council and the new city manager in order to get this property of land he wants. You know, one wonders if there isn't secret buried treasure there from L. Ron Hubbard or something, the way Miscavige is salivating over this property. But he just has to have it. And so now they're trying to get in with the city council and the new city manager, John Jennings, again. And John Jennings appears to be playing ball and bending over backwards to do anything Miscavige wants, and that's quite disgusting and sad. So, you know, we'll see what happens with that. But the good news is that with Aaron Smith-Levin and Mark Bunker there, they have a real fight on their hands. Scientology does. And I say, you know, it's high time. And the citizens of Clearwater are saying it's high time. So I wish the city council would, you know, kind of take note of that and get to it. As far as the tax exemption goes, it would be not necessarily in and of itself the death knell for Scientology if it were to lose tax-exempt status. It operated without tax-exempt status for decades, remember. And they would go right back into defense mode, circle the wagons mode, and they would not pay the taxes, and that tax bill would accumulate as they fought it again, the same way they fought it before. I mean, there really wouldn't be a whole lot of difference for any reason I could think of, especially since Miscavige still runs the show. And people would, he would spin it in such a way that the Scientology public would get a target, whether it's the IRS or it's Leah or Mike or me or other people, or it's some other agency, or it's the government itself, or. There are a million ways Miscavige could spin something like that. A lot of it might have to do also with why they lose their tax exemption. If it was because of the reason they lost it, if it was for the same reason, rather, they lost it back in 1967 because L. Ron Hubbard was personally profiting, and the IRS proved that. They had the paper trail to show. It's called inurement, and it's illegal, and it's not something that L. Ron Hubbard had a right to with the tax exemption, and so they took it away. And so Miscavige, you know, could be a similar case could be made in his direction about that. And if it were, and the IRS bought that, then that could be, if that were the reason, then the blame would be 100% on Miscavige's doorstep. But he wouldn't spin it that way. He'd have to obviously describe it some other way. But that also might, you know, but that could be publicly revealed, and then that could be a problem for him. So if that were the case, then Miscavige could have some internal PR issues, and Scientologists could turn on him, and that could be kind of nasty, kind of fast, because that might be the fastest way to get him out, and somebody else steps up and takes over. Whether that new person is a, you know, good or bad person, well, they're going to be a Scientologist, and they're going to be a Sea Org member. And that's, you know, so kind of all bets are off as to what that is, what would turn up there. And that's just one conjecture, right? What if Miscavige were to be criminally indicted for something else? What if, right? There's so many different scenarios that you can see that I can't really talk intelligently about all of them because there's too many of them. There's too many plausible ways that Scientology's tax exemption could actually be taken away if certain factors were to fall into play or certain other things were to happen. Tax-exempt status could be something that could be lost as a result of the Masterson case in a way further down the road, not next year, but down the road, if Scientology were found to be actively covering up criminal acts like sexual assault, then that would very much call into question their tax exemption, I believe. So, so you have a lot of different avenues of approach there. Would Tom Cruise come out and speak publicly against any attack on the church or about tax exemption being lost? You bet he would. And anybody else that they could get. And this would where we would see the rubber meet in the road in terms of loyalty to Scientology, because all forces would be brought front and center. If they were fighting for tax exemption, Miscavige would pull no punches, and it would be every hand on deck, and that would include the celebrities. So you would find out very quickly which celebrities are still around and willing to speak up for Scientology and which aren't. Right now, they all get to kind of hide, but if this were to happen, you would see that very quickly, and I'm sure Tom Cruise would be at the front of the line on that. He's pretty fanatical, and unless there's information otherwise, and so far there has not been 1 ounce or shred of evidence that Miscavige is anything, or sorry, Tom Cruise is anything but a religious fanatic. And then as far as, it would definitely affect how people get paid and cost of services, because money would become tighter and costs of services would be affected because people would not be able to write off those services on their taxes, on their tax forms. They would no longer be charitable donations. So that would be a huge blow to the church. And if the IAS, the International Association of Scientologists membership fund, if that were to not, be subject to taxes, I believe then donations to that would become a lot less because people wouldn't be able to claim it on their taxes. So that's kind of some immediate fallout I see from that, or some thoughts I have on that, and I hope that helps clarify that.